I think it's difficult to talk about parenting when both your kids are sitting and listening to every word you are uttering and hold you accountable eventually. I personally think there is no perfect parent as such. There's no graduation that we have as parents, no degrees to qualify you as a perfect parent out there. We judged our parents, their parenting when we were growing up. Many things we disagreed, many things we agreed later on. I'm sure our children are doing the same. And their children will do the same to them. So the cycle goes on. But I think what is important is to see where we are today. I mean, a lot of speakers have been talking about the new trends, the current generation sitting in 2025. But to parents especially, I want to take them into a thought process which I think is very important for every parent these days. Most of our children studying in schools will be seeing the real world in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I want you all to go back 10, 15 years. Go to 2010, 2015. The world was very different. Now go 10, 15 years ahead, 2035, 2040, the world is going to be very different then as again. So what we are preparing them for is a future which is unknown. There was a time when we were dealing with known unknowns. But now in 2025, I think we are dealing with unknown unknowns. That's what we're preparing them for. It is important that we see the world from their perspective, not just our perspective. We grew up in a different time, in a different era. They are growing up in a completely different time zone. It is very important to understand what they are natives of, that we as a generation were immigrants into. Technology, for example. They grew up doing this first before holding a pen. We used to write letters. We used to collect stamps. We used to have landlines. They don't. They live in an era of smartphones. There was no internet. They can't think about living without Wi-Fi or internet. For them, technology comes very natural. And as you go along, this is evolving for them. They are born as global citizens now. We are not just preparing them for Pakistan. We are preparing them as global citizens. So what are the skill sets that we need to give them that they are competing with? An average child across the border, an average child in Dubai, Europe, Japan, what skills are they gaining? And therefore we'll be competing with them as global citizens. So those are the important thought processes we need to have as parents, as educators. But I think a few fundamentals, because these are the things that we perhaps hear of quite often. I think we need to go down to some of the fundamentals. I feel and I strongly believe in, as an educator, as a parent, that it's important to listen to our children, not just talk to them. It is important to hear their voices as well. It is important to know what their fears are, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what is their perspective of a war that went on in the city, of a cricket match that we lost or won yesterday. It is very, very important to hear their mind out. Even if it's a mistake that they are making, you need to understand what was the thought process before that particular action. The problem is we don't hear our kids out. And we love to talk to them and lecture them, not realizing where they're coming from and what are their fundamentals of whatever actions that they make out there. That is where the change comes in. Unfortunately, in this growing time zone and era, we also don't have enough time for our children. We are too busy in our world. So we leave the parenting either to the maids, to the ayahs, to the school. We hold them accountable, but we don't have time for our children. We have the money, we can provide them with the best of facilities, not realizing that they need more than that. They need more than the gadgets that we are providing them. They need a parent in the first place. So it's very important to look into those finer details that we somehow overlooking these days now. And blame or rely too much on either technology or the school to do the parenting for us. Every child is different. Every child's mindset, thought process, skill sets, attitudes, it's different. In IB, we believe in differentiated learning. And I think that is the differentiation that the parents need to learn. The ethos of TNS is learning without boundaries. I think this applies to parents as well. We need to learn and unlearn without boundaries as well. There is a lot that we do not understand as far as the next generation or our own kids are concerned. Sadly, parents are the last people to find out about their own children. Somehow, things are off the table. I personally think nothing should be off the table when it comes to your children. They should be able to come and discuss anything and everything under the sun and talk to you. Whether you're sleeping at 3 a.m. or you're in the middle of 1,000 people, they should have the power to come, take you out, and share whatever is going on in their minds. Such is the relationship that is needed out there. A few things of the past, and not everything was bad about the past, was that we used to all have meals on a dining table. There was no television to aim for. So what did that do? No mobile phones, discussion, talks, gupshup. You would hear each other's views. You would talk about everyday affairs. You would talk about what happened today, etc. There was a lot of personalized discussion. There were no gadgets at that point of time. So that has unfortunately taken away that personalized parenting that used to happen once upon a time. You're watching a television, you're watching a play or a Netflix. You don't want to be bothered by the child, so you hand them the phone. That, get busy with that, don't disturb me. So what is the child going to pick up at that particular time? Or go to the maid, I don't have time for you. So the child is then looking for answers elsewhere. It is not the parent then providing the information. It is the driver, the ayah, the maid, the cousin, the neighbor, etc., providing those answers to them. And that is where the gap starts to emerge. And then suddenly we see the school is reporting misbehavior, misconduct, the child is not doing well, etc., and not realizing that we have contributed as parents to that particular situation. So it's very, very important to stay involved, to stay attached, and to develop that communication and collaboration that we expect our children to do. We need to collaborate with them, we need to function with them, and we need to associate with them when it comes to their lives. Now, on a flip side, we also have certain parents, which are helicopter parents as we call them, that micromanage children into everything, that want to know everything that goes on in their lives, and want to control their destiny, their future, their present, etc. I think it is very important to let them be and to try and understand that what worked for us, what were our ambitions or what we could not achieve, our children are very different. So they may not achieve the same goals that we achieved, or they would not like to achieve what we wanted them to achieve. So if I couldn't become a doctor, there should be no pressure on my child to become a doctor. Because their own abilities and their own psyche, their own likes are very different from what were mine. And we have to accept that. And there comes a time when I keep on telling parents as well, where you may disagree with their choices, but you have to respect their decisions. There comes a time when you have to pull back and you have to let them be. That hand-holding has to go away. That micromanagement has to go away. Don't pack their bags. Let them make mistakes. Let them forget a copy or a pencil. 1 week, 2 weeks down the line, they will pack their own bags themselves. They realize the importance of doing it. Let them drop food. Let them drop that plate and glass. How will they learn how to eat themselves? So we need to back off a little as well. And that is where we need to respect their lines, their boundaries as well. And we have to allow them to nurture their own mind, their own thought processes, and to be themselves. Not everything can be predestined when it comes to our own children as well. They can be very different from what we were. And that is the realization and acceptance that we need to have as parents. I think a few guidelines, like I said, not everything applies to every parent, every household, every child is very different. But I think what can be uniform is the fact that there can be and there should be communication. That we realize that the future that these children are going for, as many of the speakers also talked about, is very, very different. So the skill sets they need to compete, but not just within Pakistan, but beyond the boundaries of this country, are going to be very, very different. That means that fixation with grades, that fixation with studies, that may get them into good university, because that is the prerequisite still, unfortunately. But we need to think beyond the university. We need to think about the real world. What will they be in 10, 15, 20 years down the line? That it is not just job seeking, it is job making as well that they'll be getting into, that Hassan was talking about. So it's very important to realize, like I said, the unknown unknowns that are coming their way and they're coming our way later on in life. Once again, there are no hard and fast rules. What applies to us may not apply to them and vice versa. But what stands uniform as far as every household is concerned is the fact that they need to give that space to the child to, experiment, to be curious, to perhaps fail as well. Because many times we realize that children are scared of making mistakes, not realizing there is nothing wrong in making mistakes. Mistakes are natural. You will make mistakes, but then you need to learn from your mistakes. So it is very essential to give them that space because the expectation levels at times are enormous Over the course of 20, 25 years, I've seen some brilliant students make to top-notch universities. One of them committed suicide because there was tremendous pressure that the child was growing up all their life. Sitting at Harvard, that child committed suicide. So it is very, very important that A, we understand, or at least try and understand what our child is all about, and then work on their skills, work on what can be improved, and then also learn to live with their shortcomings as well. Something that shouldn't be forced onto them, because not every child is going to be perfect, not every child will be head boy, head girl, and not every child will be that star student. And those are not the benchmarks for being successful in the future. So primarily, I think it's the parents that need to relearn and rethink and basically evolve, not just the children. Because the children grow up, sadly it's the parents who don't grow up with them. Thank you.